Hello everyone and welcome to my second video tutorial on serial communication. Today I am going to show you how to add software to the GUI which we've made already. The first thing which we'll need to do is we'll disable these four components. We'll select these and we'll go to the enabled attribute here and we'll set it to false. Also the component for the receiving text box, we'll set the attribute read only to true because we don't want the user messing around with the data here. So after this what we'll do is we'll set the software behind these four buttons. Let's start with the open port button. We'll double click on the button and since this is button 3, a function has been created named button3 underscore click. This will be executed when the button is clicked. So what we need to do is first we'll add a try block and we'll check if the combo boxes have been assigned their proper values yet. So if they are empty, we won't be able to operate on the port. So we'll just check if they are empty or not. So if combo1 dot text is empty or combo2 dot text is empty, if either of this is empty, we'll need to send a message to the user to select the proper configuration for the port. So we'll just write this down in text box 2 and we'll write down text box 2 dot text and we'll set it to please select port settings. And if the port settings are already selected, then what we'll have to do is we'll open the port. So I'll write down else here, and the first thing which we'll do is we'll set the serial port's name. So serial port 1 dot port name, and we'll set it to combo box 1 dot text. So if you remember the items which were appearing in the combo box 1, there were com2, com3 and so on. So one of these ports will be assigned to the serial port, and so serial port name, the port name attribute has been set to the value of the combo box 1. The next thing which we'll do is we'll set the baud rate. So serial port 1 dot baud rate. Now since baud rate is an integer, we'll need to convert the value of combo box 2 to an integer before we set the value. So we'll write convert dot to int 32 and we'll write down your combo box 2 dot text. So once the two attributes of the serial port have been set, we can open the serial port. So we'll write down serial port dot open, and then we had a progress bar. We can set the progress bar's value to 100, and what we can do is now since the port has been opened after this, we can start enabling the text boxes and the different buttons which we had got. So we can just enable button 1 by writing button 1 dot enable is equal to true, and similarly I'll be doing the same for button 2. So I'll just paste it, and the next thing which needs to be done is text box 1 has to be enabled because that will be used for giving input to the com port. So I'll just write down text box 1 dot enabled is true. So we've enabled the read button, the send button and the text box 1 over here, and what we'll need to do now is we'll have to disable the open port button. So since it was button 3, I'll write down button 3 dot enabled equal to false, and we'll enable the send the close port button because since the port has been opened, it can now be closed also when the work is done. So button 4 will be enabled. A little thing which I missed out earlier is that we'll have to set the enabled attribute of the close port button to false right now. So I'll set it to false, and once the try block is completed, we can write the catch block. So what we'll be writing down in the catch block is an unauthorized access exception. So if this exception is thrown, what we'll need to do is we can just fill the text of text box 2 as let's say unauthorized access. So we've completed the button 3 operation. So let's see what's happening. I'm going to be selecting COM10 and I'll select the baud rate as 9600. I'll open the port. We can see now the close port button is activated. The send text box and the send button and the read buttons have also been activated, and the status bar is displaying its 100% value. So the button works. The next thing which we'll write down is the close port buttons code. So what we need to write down here is, let's say serial port 1 dot close. We'll just close the serial port, and after closing the serial port we'll have to set the progress bar's value to 0 again. Now again we'll have to disable the components which were enabled when the port was open. So I can disable button 1 equals to false, and similarly I'll disable button 2 and button 4. Again I'll enable the button 3, which was the open port button, so I'll write this as true. Now the text box has to be disabled, so I'll just paste this here and I'll set this attribute to false. So let's see. I'll select the COM port, the baud rate, and I'll open the port. You can see once the open port button was clicked and the port was open, the close port button has now been activated, and I can press the close port button and all this is disabled again, and the open port button is activated now. The next thing which we need to do is write the code for sending and receiving the text. Let's write the code for sending first. So I'll double click on send and I'll just write down serial port dot write line, and I'll set the value as textbox1 dot text. So once this is done, what I'll do, I'll set the value of textbox1 dot text as null again, so that once the text is sent, the text box 1 is empty. And what we'll do here with the read button is pretty much similar, but except of sending data, we'll be receiving data here. So I put it in a try block and I write down textbox2 dot text equal to, let's say, serial port dot read line, and I can catch an exception here. The exception will be the timeout exception, so I'll just print this here as textbox2 dot text equal to timeout exception, and let's see what happens. Now I have a Arduino connected to the COM10 port, so I'll be connecting to it now, and let's see what happens if I send a character 1. I'll read here and it says this is awesome. Let's see what happens if I send 2. I have pressed 2 and now when I read it gets better. So that's all for this tutorial series. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe.